Conscientious objectors are people who refuse to fight battles or wars on views of political, religious, or personal values. Conscientious objectors in history date as far back as the Revolutionary and Civil War of America. It is during these times of war and distress that they have had an unknown struggle in receiving fair treatment and respect. The treatment conscientious objectors received in World War I would later be called a basic infringement of human rights by some, and was harsh, unfair, and in some instances inhumane. Objectors were harassed, beaten, jailed, and sometimes even killed without much public knowledge. Propaganda targeted and attacked objectors for being cowardly and having the inability to fight for a cause that others saw as a civic duty. However, the time frame between the start of World War I and the end of World War II saw a change in the treatment of conscientious objectors. As World War II began to take shape, Congress formed new laws allowing conscientious objectors two choices when drafted into war. They could go into the military and serve as a non-combatant soldier, or they could elect to do alternative service at civil service camps that would be directly aiding troops with food and supplies. This compromise was a success as it resulted in conscientious objectors helping the military in ways that coincided with their moral or religious obligations. When World War I started in 1914 between the Allies and the Central Powers, the issue of conscientious objection became a pressing matter yet again. And, after being reluctant to join, America decided to back the Allies in what was called the War to End All Wars. This decision is mostly attributed to the sinking of the civilian transport ship, the Lusitania, and the Zimmermann telegraph sent by Germany to convince Mexico to invade the United States. During this time, President Woodrow Wilson realized that the American Army lacked a substantial fighting force. So, on March 18, 1917, the Selective Service Act was passed, which required all men ages 21 through 30 to register for the Army. Although this successfully allowed for the U.S. to raise more troops for the war, there were thousands of young men who did not want to fight in the war for religious or personal or political reasons. These men, known as conscientious objectors, held personal beliefs that were considered cowardly by the public. Conscientious objectors were not a united group of people, and most held different personal views on the war. Some conscientious objectors were abolitionists, who had no interest in serving the country as they did not believe in war of any form. Others were objecting for religious reasons, as their religions promoted nothing but peace. Some even objected for political reasons, fighting without weapons, for an end to harsh and unfair political rule. These men, who were ignored and overlooked by the Selective Service Act, were forced to join the Army, else they faced being called a traitor to the country and be court-martialed. After being enlisted, a CO would then have to file for CO status. This process could take months, and during this time, the individual filing for CO status would be hazed and bullied in hopes of renouncing their views. If an individual was registered as a conscientious objector, his only choice was a non-combatant role on the front lines of warfare, no matter their reasons for objecting in the first place. Conscientious objectors fought hard in order to obtain more rights, however they were continually denied. Two court cases attempted to broaden the justification of conscientious objection beyond solely religious grounds to social, political, and intellectual grounds in World War II. They were called United States v. Cotton and Berman v. United States. However, in both these cases, the courts ruled against expanding the potential